Hey everybody, my name's Tim Bryan. I like to make sports analytics videos. A couple things before I get started on today's project. Uh, I have a Discord where people will talk about, what kind of sports analytics projects they're working on. If you have any Python questions or things like that, or questions about how to get data, anything related to sports analytics or projects that you're working on, feel free to join. I will put a link in the description for that. The other thing is I will be going to the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Hackathon next week. So I'll be posting my experience, maybe a breakdown of my experience there, and just talking about how the hackathon went. Pretty excited to compete and also go to the conference and see some cool people present things, people in the sports industry. But yeah, today's topic is natural language processing related. So, what I've done high level is scraped NFL.com. I'll show you the website here. Oh, that's the final result. But this is the website that I scraped, NFL.com. It's the prospect tracker website. So, looks like they just updated it today for 2023 players. But anyway, basically, it has data from 2014 to 2023 now. Went through, scraped the website, and I'll just show you an example of what I scraped. So the two things we're looking for are the player grade, the prospect grade, and also the description here. So went through. I think the scrape job took about 9 hours to run. So if you've never scraped before, essentially what it is I'll show the code actually. So what it'll do is it takes control of your Chrome browser. It'll open the Chrome browser. It'll open that web page, dump the HTML out, and then I'm looking for a specific HTML element. In this case, you can see them here as the classes that I'm calling out. So I have the scrape.py file here just for reference, but if you try to run it yourself, first of all, it takes a very long time. It's kind of compute intensive as well, but it also doesn't, there's certain prospects on the website that they don't have certain things filled in. They may not have a grade or a description. It may be a null, not even just blank. It might be null. So I had to go through and manually fix the data set. So, if you want this Python file for your reference on how I got the data, feel free to use it. But I have in the GitHub repo, which I'll post a link to, I have the end result here. So if you want to use that. But anyway, what we're doing is taking the natural language of these scouting reports for NFL prospects, college players looking to get drafted, and we're just kind of trying to understand the relationship between the grade and the text in the report. So I guess the end result would be, it's something I've been working on, trying to train a large language model, something that like a large language model is something that like would back up ChatGPT, for example. You can fine tune those large language models with your own text. So the idea would be to, generate predictions from an NFL prospect's text just based on the text, not based on their statistics or anything. Maybe generate, create a model that generates text based on the player's performance, something like that. But anyway, this video is just like an initial exploration. So we've got the data, scraped it. That's the hard part. Now we can see here, Jadeveon Clowney was the highest rated prospect in 2014. Again, this data set goes 2014 to 2022. So the columns are the player name, the player bio, the grade, the link to their page, and then the player category. So if you go to the NFL website here, we can see the grading system. So, this is the grading system all the way from 5.5 or ungraded. 5.5 would be like undrafted. And then 8.0 is the perfect prospect. I don't think anyone's ever gotten an 8.0. I think Jadeveon Clowney's the highest graded prospect, at least from this data set, at 7.5. So they're categorizing him as an all pro right out of college. But we can see the distribution of these grades. A majority of them are between like 5.5, which is classified as undrafted, or yeah, between 5.5 and like 6.2. So a lot of these guys, I mean, most players coming out of college are not going to start right away, and a lot of them will never even see any playing time. So we can see the distribution here. So here's another look at the distribution, kind of in descending order. You can see which class of which category based on the player grade each the full data set is. So it's kind of surprising that the boomer bust potential category, which isn't even the highest one, it's 6.5 to 6.6, is the least frequently used. So obviously, perennial All Pro is like the highest that they'll give. There's never been a perfect prospect, but they use boomer bust potential even less than that, which is kind of surprising. So if we take that, I've just kind of categorized this, and the library we're using is called scatter text. So you take it's kind of an interesting library. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to take the player bio column, and we're going to remove the stop word. So a stop word is something like an article, like those things. We're going to take those out of the data set because those don't really reveal anything about what the scout thinks about this player. So we get rid of the stop words, and then we're going to feed in this into something called a corpus, which is just an object that contains all of these words. Um, we're categorizing the player bios, the words in the player bios based on player class, which I've defined up here. It's basically, I've classified from year one starter and above. That's what I would classify as a starter. So obviously, anyone better than a year one starter, they're expecting to start the scout is expecting them to start year one. Anyone below that is going to be either be undrafted or a backup. So that's the player class. It's basically a binary 0 or 1, 1 being a year one starter or better. So we take that. That's our categorization column, and then our text column is player bio. We're using this NLP function to process the text, and then we can see. I'm not sure how this slipped through. That's a stop word, but anyway, you can see the frequency of each word based on whether they're a backup or a starter. And then a little bit more here. This is all some deep math. I mean, I'll share where I got this. All this is explained in the scatter text GitHub page, but essentially it's things like harmonic mean, whatever that is. But it's just basically the frequency that the word is used in either a player classified as a year one starter or a player classified as a backup. So precision would be how often it's only used in either one of those categories, and then the frequency is pretty self-explanatory. How often is it used? So this is just kind of some pre-processing. Let me show you the final result here. So this is the final result. It's kind of a very cool visualization, if you ask me. You can, if you download my repository, you can render this HTML in the browser, and it's actually interactive. So let me explain the chart first, though. So on the x-axis, this is the backup word frequency. So top right would be, it's both frequently, these words or phrases are both frequently used in starter descriptions as well as backup descriptions. So things like, word, father, that word is used a lot. Forced fumbles is something that's used between both of them. Coaches, these are just common football words used to describe like all prospects. Bottom right, closer to the bottom right, these are things that are used only or way more frequently for backups than it is for starters. So things like Johnson, for whatever reason, that's only used on backups. That's obviously just uh, a random correlation there. But things like COVID, so if a player was sidelined due to COVID, or maybe their prime college years were 2020 or something, they lost out on some play time, things like that. So top left would be the opposite. This is what you kind of want to pay attention to. These are words that are only used with prospects that are classified as starters. So unanimous, things like Mayfield, so players like obviously Baker Mayfield himself, as well as a lot of players that played with Baker Mayfield, classified as starters. Fiesta Bowl, Stanley, some of these words, some of these names, well, Fournette, some top defender, some of these words like Walter Camp, that's an award. So things like awards, dad. So either the player's father was maybe a previous NFL player or something like that. Disruptive, words like this. So it's just kind of an interesting thing to look at. It's like a natural language analysis of the prospects, and you can read about how they determine like frequency and precision. You can read about in the scatter text library. Not something that I understand fully, but it's a lot of deep math. So next step with this project is I'm going to be looking at Hugging Face, which is a website that it's kind of like GitHub, but for large language models. So I'm going to be looking at fine tuning a model to either generate player descriptions based on statistics or something like that, or maybe some sentiment analysis. I haven't really figured it out yet. If anyone is experienced with fine tuning large language models and can help me out with that, that would be appreciated. But feel free to use this data set. It was kind of annoying to gather, so hopefully somebody can take it and run with it and do something with it. But I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you.